Is greed fueling is greed fueling higher truck prices? Hey, it's Tim, Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. Let's talk about that and a few other topics. It's Friday. It's Truck News Recap Day. If you're new to the channel, I do these every Friday. It's a weekly show. I talk about one topic. In this case, I talk about greed. I talk about other topics that happen throughout the week in the channel. Talk about some behind-the-scenes stuff as well. You can download this as a podcast as well and play it on your favorite podcast listening apps and things. So let's talk about greed. I was thinking about this morning. Out of the last 9 years now, doing this channel, I've never actually talked about greed, but this has come up this week, and I wrote a whole story this morning. Spent 4 hours researching this. It's 1,300 words. If you don't want to listen to me, watch the video. I'll put a link to the story in the description in the comments down below. You can stop the video whenever you want to. Just go read it. But it came up from this TikTok video, which I'm not going to play, but it's just this interview, not really interview, but a statement that Ram CEO Tim Kuniskis said why he can't make a truck less than $40,000. He's got one that's like 41, 42 with some change. He can't get below that. He says some federal mandates and things. And people just didn't like that answer, frankly. And they said, here we go. You can't make a $40,000 profit on a $40,000 truck, was the answer. No reason trucks should be $70,000 to $100,000. It's all about money in their pockets. It's called their own greed and Wall Street expectations. Big profitable sale. The salary's too high. It's about greed. Corporate greed. And I just was like, man, I see it all the time. I'm like, 5.8 billion in profit last year. Greed. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. Is it really greed? Is greed the biggest problem here? Trucks have gotten so expensive. It's gotten so out of hand because those darn automakers are full of greed. And that CEO is so greedy because he wants more bonus in his pocket. Okay. I like these questions because, I don't know, I'm weird like that. So I start looking into it because, I'm a journalist. I have a degree in the wall. I went to school for this. And I have this photo as tungsten because now this is the new expensive truck from Ram. And frankly, I just was picking on Ram this week and thought, let's do one more thing on Ram. So this is $87,000 for this truck. And people see this as pure greed. The only reason this truck exists is because pure greed. Okay. So I put the video in there. So you can watch the video if you want to watch it again. Greed, the simple answer. People love simple answers, don't they? And people just love simple. If I tell you this truck's $87,000, you're going to say it's just greed. Simple answer, stop video, go home, day's done, right? That's simple. But it's never really that simple. Life's never about simple answers. It's always more complex things going on. And people think that because truck prices are higher due to greed, automakers are surely making more profit from the middle-class consumers that are now forced to pay the higher prices. The middle class feels like they're now indebted to the automakers because they take out these 7-year loans to afford these trucks. And I'm like, you don't have to buy the trucks. You can go buy a used truck. Nobody's forcing your hand to buy something, but okay. But the economic reports tell a different story. So I started doing some searching. So Ford Motor Company, when you start looking at net income from 2007 to 2024, if you're starting to listen to podcasts, net income, not profits. People focus on profits. I have a chart to show you profits, and profits are like, wow, profits are crazy. And that's the problem with statistics here. Is you have different ways to look at this stuff. Net income is when you take out payroll, you take out all the expenses, in Ford's case, recall numbers and things, all the expenses they put into that. Net income is what they actually made. And they had a few years here. They were down. They lost money in a couple of years. This is from their financial reports. This is from Statistica that gets this stuff. From their financial reports, that a couple of years they lost some money. So looking at, let's look at Ram. In this case, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles was the parent company. This is their net revenue in billions of euros. So 105 billions of euros net revenue from a global company. They weren't doing so hot. I know it sounds like that's amazing, but from a global company, that's the reason they had to merge with Stellantis, because they were not having enough money to invest in new technologies, to invest in new hybrids and things. They needed a new partner. So they had to merge. So I know these numbers look massive. Wow, that's a lot of money, but they weren't. Automotive is a very capital intensive business. So we just saw GM invest $4 billion in the last 2 weeks. Yeah, they just, because it's very capital intensive. So they weren't doing so hot either. Now, listen to the UAW talk. They were doing amazing. The big three automakers achieved more than $250 billion in profits over the past decade. Well, if you start adding stuff together and you don't talk about net, yeah, it looks like they're really greedy. Look at that, $37 billion in net, in gross profits in 2022. If you add all three automakers together and you forget about the capital investments they're making, sure, I can see your point of view with that. So yeah, maybe you're going to say that's greedy, but think about that. That tungsten model I just showed you, that high dollar tungsten model, it didn't exist in 2022. It came out in 25. We didn't have luxury trucks going back all the way. The King Ranch came out, I think, in 2013, and even that wasn't as luxury as today. GMC didn't really start pushing the Denali Ultimate until 23, 24. So yeah, that wasn't the case with those high dollar luxury trucks. The Raptor R, the first $100,000 half ton truck, didn't exist during those model years or those years of profits. So I'm not so sold that greed is a big component of this as far as these high dollar luxury trucks, because they didn't exist during these high profit years. So, you could still say greed. Sure. I'm not going to argue that point with you on that one, because everybody's going to have their viewpoint. I'm never going to change that viewpoint, but I'm just saying things don't add up in my world. They don't add up. Like 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 in this case, because those trucks you're saying are really greedy. This $87,000 truck didn't exist during this data set I have. Now you're going to say to me, well, these CEOs make a lot of money, right? So I'd looked into this. So CEO Mary Barra, she made a lot of money. Let's use her as an example. Let me pull this up for you. So I got thinking about this. CEO Mary Barra made a lot of money, right? Actually, her contract's more like a sports player. She makes a small salary, then she gets bonuses for performance, and she gets stock options. So her total salary was actually 29.5 million. But what's interesting is if you take that against the number of total vehicles they were sold globally, which is 5.9 million, her total compensation per vehicle sold is like $5. So when you go to buy the $80,000 truck, $5. $5 is their salary on that truck. So not really that big of a deal. And interesting enough, like your $2.1 million base salary, the catcher, the Detroit Tigers catcher, makes more than she does on an annual basis on per her salary, per her. So while I agree that CEO pay is kind of crazy how numbers are, in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking billions and multinational companies and things like that, the millions that she made divided on the number of vehicles they sell and how it all works in the business sense, it's not as big of a number as you think it is. Does that make sense? $5. And if you take out her stock options, which aren't really paid until she sells them, it's more like $2.50. So every time they sell a vehicle, $2.50 goes to pay her salary. Back to the story. So now let's go down and talk about also things that happen. Have higher truck prices really changed? I guess differently. Have higher truck prices really happened? Let me say it differently. So what's going on then if automakers aren't raking in the big profits? If the net revenue really isn't there, gross profits are there. Gross, right? So like my business, I make gross profits. I should be eating T-bone steaks every night, not the peanut butter and jelly sandwich I'm going to have here for lunch pretty soon. Big difference between gross and net. But surely truck prices have changed. Even Ram CEO Kuniskis said as much. He says, remember when trucks were cheap? Now everything has gotten expensive. So he even said trucks have gotten expensive. But it got me thinking about how expensive trucks have gotten. That's, this is my brain works. So I asked him at that meeting, I said, remember they used to have the Ram Classic. That was the prior generation Ram. It was the 2018 model. You guys do gens. Fifth gen Ram, and they were selling that at a lower price point. When a new gen, maybe fourth gen, fifth gen, something like that, when the new truck came out, they kept the old one going. They sold a little bit cheaper. Customers didn't care. They didn't care about the screens, that kind of stuff. They wanted a cheaper truck. They bought it. And they equated for about, say 10, 15% of Ram total sales. And so when the new model came out in 2025, the Classic was dead because of some changes with the new truck. They couldn't keep building the old one. This happens all the time. GM's done this for years. Ford's done this at different times. You have some changes with stamping and things. I remember years ago, the 2015 Ford, when it came in aluminum, Mexico was still building the Lincoln Blackwood. It was still a big seller down there. They finally had to stop building that because they couldn't make the same trucks because they lost the mold, because they couldn't stamp the steel anymore because they moved the aluminum. So this stuff happens. I asked him his plan. He says, well, the Express. He says the 1500 Express was brought back for that purpose, to replace the Classic as an entry-level Ram truck. Ram's really excited for this Express. They're really excited to have a lower price point truck. It's interesting because when I go to the TikTok world and I talk about this stuff, I get destroyed in the comments. I'm like, geez, they're trying to, and you guys hate them for that. And maybe it's just TikTok lately, but Facebook's been just as bad too. People are just in a bad mood lately. So I started looking at stuff. I went to Motor Trend and I started looking at 2016 trims and pricing versus 2025 trims and pricing. This was fascinating. What's also fascinating, and people don't talk about this enough, this really gets me frustrated. This is my frustration, my critique. Destination fees. I was talking to my dad. My dad used to sell Ford cars in Janesville, Wisconsin in 1976. He said destination fees weren't a thing in 1976. But now destination fees are a thing. In the past 9 years, destination fees have gone from $1,195 to $2,095. That I don't think is reported nearly enough, and that's something you guys don't talk about enough in the comments. So I'm kind of blaming you guys too as the viewers. There needs to be more conversation about destination fees, and I'm surprised more people aren't talking about that. People talk about the price jump in trucks, but this is a fee that you have to pay that has gone up that people aren't arguing about. I think that is a big issue. That's a big problem for me. But let's talk about trims and pricing. So Tradesman two-wheel drive short bed regular cab was $26,145 in 2016, if I can speak correctly. Interestingly enough, that truck doesn't exist today. And I'll get to that a little more in a little bit. I have a comparison that's going to blow your mind. That truck doesn't exist today, so it's no comparison. The Tradesman two-wheel drive short bed quad cab was $30,380, and now it's $40,275. So it's up $10,000 in the span of 9 years. I got some photos to show you, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But I think that's interesting. I expected that to be more. In today's world, in today's pricing, with what's going on, I was so surprised it wasn't more. I know you may be thinking, my God, it's up $10,000, a little bit less than $10,000. But I expect that to be more, honestly. Maybe I'm being pessimistic or whatever. The Bighorn, the two-wheel drive regular cab Bighorn, doesn't exist. So has pricing gone up? Yeah. But the regular cab trucks didn't exist or don't exist today. So that you can't, it's weird. You can't really say that we've gone from 26,000 to 40,000 because that $26,000 truck doesn't exist. Quad cab is up about $10,000. So in both cases, a two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive work truck has gone up about $10,000. Okay, so interesting. The Express, which is what the entry-level kind of Ram truck back then that they tried to build, was $35,730. They're bringing that back. It's $42,400. I said 44 above. That includes a $2,000 destination fee. So it's about $9,000 difference. So it's about the same price difference with the Tradesman in 9 years difference. So interesting there, right? So about the same price difference. We have about $9,000. Bighorn, Quad cab, about the same deal, about $9,000. Bighorn, about $9,000. Pretty similar story. All the low trim, Bighorn, Tradesman, Express, about $9,000. Where it gets really interesting is when you start looking at Laramies, Rebels, Limiteds, and then the new Tungsten. Somebody said to me on TikTok, they said, it used to be you walked in a dealership with $50,000 and you could buy the truck with all the bells and whistles. Right. I thought to myself, like, okay, I don't understand the point of that comment personally. Things have changed because the Tungsten didn't exist back then in 2016. The Limited, I'm going to do a comparison for you because the Limited here, that's $55,000. It's not today's Limited. It's a totally different truck, and you'll see the photos of this. And I'll explain to you the difference here. So what's really changed is the top end of the market here. The Rebel is a whole different truck than it was back then, right? So things have really changed at the top end. The low end, we're looking about $9,000 difference. I don't think that's too outlandish when you consider everything has changed so much in the last 9 years as far as pricing has gone. But the top end has really made a big change. So we'll talk about that. So what's really changed then? Before we get to that, because I want to show you this, let's talk about what my friends are doing over at Expel, their new channel sponsor. Really excited to have them on board. Let's see what they're up to with them. Okay, back to the video. What's really changed then? The growth of customer demand for nicer interiors, more technology, and introduction of new top-tier luxury trucks. I'm sorry, for those people that hate the bigger screens, for every person that hates bigger screen, there's 10 people that love them. Everybody that doesn't want a nicer interior for the truck, or one person doesn't want them, there's like 10 people that want them. There's a lot of demand for that stuff. I see it on my channel all the time. People want technology. They tell me they want it. They want safer trucks. They want more efficient powertrains. I see it all the time. There's a lot of demand for that. But they still offer in the lower trim levels, you can still get the more inexpensive truck, the less materials. You can't get the smaller screens anymore because it's more economically feasible for automakers to do a big screen throughout. It makes more sense. It's much cheaper. And those big screens don't add to the price as much as you think. So you can go buy a big screen aftermarket for like $1,000. So automakers are probably paying about $400 or $500 to put those screens in. So that's not driving the price up that much. I see people in the comments all the time say, we'll take those big screens out and drop the price to $20,000. What? That's not happening. You can go to Walmart and buy a 60-inch TV for what, $700? So big screens aren't driving the price that much. That's not what's happening. So you're seeing more of that happening in trucks. People want that stuff. They want more cameras. The backup camera is now mandatory. There's having more mandatory safety equipment that's coming. That's here and coming. I screwed up one video. Automatic emergency braking is standard in 2029, but there are companies making it standard in products today. So more mandatory safety equipment is coming. That's going to artificially keep raising the price. I can tell you, I've been doing pricing for years, and every year pricing can go up by usually goes by $300-$400, maybe $1,000 here and there. And trucks have changed. We'll get more of that. But what's interesting is for most brands, the top tier luxury trucks didn't exist 10 years ago. Tungsten, Capstone, GMC Ultimate Denali, Chevrolet High Country, the Ford Platinum Plus did not exist 10 years ago. The thought of adding luxury features in the trucks at that level that we do today would have been laughed at 10 years ago. So the market's changed. Consumers changed, and there's consumers who want this stuff. I put a story in here. I remember asking then Vice President Duncan Aldred with GMC. He had just come out with like Denali and made some more features to it. This was before Denali Ultimate. And I said, hey, what's the price ceiling for these top tier luxury trucks? And he looked at me and he just kind of smirked. He says, we're just talking about this the office today, and we don't know. He says, we don't know. At GMC, they had no idea. He goes, we keep adding more luxury in these trucks. We keep saying yes to the nice materials. We keep having to raise our price because our costs go higher because those luxury materials aren't free. Those new wheels and tires aren't free. We pay for them and we pass the cost along to consumers. And you know what happens? Consumers keep buying them. So we don't know if there's a price ceiling. He said, we haven't found one. So people say to me, it's all greed. It's all, automakers greed, more money in their pockets. Well, automakers are telling me we don't know what the price ceiling is. They're like, we keep trying to find it. We don't know what you guys are willing to not spend on. When you guys stop buying those luxury trucks at a certain level, we'll just back it back down. They're like, you tell us, what do you think the price ceiling is? We'll make the vehicles at the price ceiling you think it's going to be at. Just tell it what the answer is. That's what his point was. Now, automakers don't sell a lot of high-end luxury trucks, yet critics seem fixated at them. I think it's something about the $100,000 price point. I'll get a little more about that. Just something about mentally, psychology about that. Now, automaker profit is generally believed to be between 3 to 10% per truck, according to various sources. So you think of it this way. For every, let's say, 10 to 20 Tradesman Works trucks Ram sells, they make around $3,000 per truck. That's about 10% profit, right? In that range, 3 to 10%. So if you have $40,000 truck, 10% is about 4,000. So you're making about not 10% on that. So they make about 3,000. But they sell a lot of tradesmen. They sell a lot of bighorns, not so many Laramies, not so many limited, and very few tungstens. So they may get lucky and sell one tungsten and make 7,000 per that truck. And people are so fixated on tungsten. Oh, look at the profit they made in that bid. That thing's full of profit. Well, yeah, but if you're selling one versus 20 of the tradesmen, I don't understand why the fixation is on that profit of tungsten. It's just one. They make a lot more profit overall on selling the tradesmen. They make a lot more profit overall selling the bighorns. That's why they build a lot more bighorns and tradesmen. That's why most dealership lots have a lot more bighorns and tradesmen on them than they do tungstens. Now, this is going to vary by your area. You're going to tell me in the comments, no, Tim, I see a lot of tungstens in my area. Well, yeah, if you live like in Beverly Hills, you might see a lot more tungstens on your dealership lot because your dealership is a small business owner and he's going to order trucks based on his clientele he has. So he's going to see a lot more of his clientele are going to be more high dollar clientele. He's going to order that for them. In my area, they'll never order a tungsten. I'll never see one on my dealership lot because the average income in this area doesn't mean anybody around you is going to buy one. People are going to buy tungsten in my area are going to have to go to Denver to buy one because nobody here is going to stock one. They're going to stock tradesmen. They're going to stock bighorns. And they're going to stock a very occasional Laramie. Very occasional Laramie. That's what they're going to stock because that's what the clientele in this area is. So you'll see a difference in the area. This is the really interesting part. Trim versus trim. I see it all the time in the comments on social media. I bought XYZ truck and this year for this amount of money. Okay. My point of view when I see those comments is, does that truck really exist in today's market? So let's do it for example. I just saw this come today. Somebody said they bought a 2016 Ram 1500 Limited for $44,000 in 2016. They got it out there for $39,000. I thought, wow, they got a hell of a deal because that's not the price point it was. So the Limited was, if we go back up this price point chart, was 55. So I don't know how they got it down to 44. That's a Laramie price. So I don't know. The person may be being confused. But let's just say that for lack of a better purpose, let's just let that 44 number go by. But let's look at the top trim was 2016 Ram 1500 Limited. This is a $55,000 truck. $55,000 truck. And today it's $75,000. So it's $20,000 difference. This is the press release. And I'll read it to you guys. If you listen to the podcast, I'm going to read this to you. The Limited is the apex of modern luxury. Subtle stitching accents, pinstriping, unique materials and patterns are found throughout the interior. These are details created for the customer who appreciates them. A new console bin houses a cellular phone and tablet holder, which can be concealed with a new tambour wood sliding door. The real wood door is made from black Argento wood, the chosen timber for the Limited interior. The collective silver pinstripe theme runs through the wood, and a satin chrome handle rolls the door with ease. An all-black headliner and pillars combination is new for Limited and Rebel models. Finally, passengers will enjoy solid black Premier Berber carpet inserts, which can easily be removed from the floor mats to reveal double-duty slush mats. So what's it talking about? It's talking about it's got a high grade material of wood in there. It's got some nice all black headliner. Doesn't talk about material quality, just all black headliner. It's got a new console bin. That's what we're talking about this. And I was able to go back and find some photos. So this is, if you're listening to the podcast, this is the 2016 Ram Limited. It's a nice looking truck for back then. It's nicely styled. Got some chrome in the front. We have some smaller wheels on this. Compared to today's market, you'll see the 2026 or 2025 here in a minute. I think it's 25 or 26. A nicely done back rear end. It's got limited in chrome on the back bumper. And the interior has got the little bit smaller screen. We have a bucket seats. I have a console. I have limited as a piece of trim that is on the center console. Okay. And we have a nice steering wheel and a little small, what we consider today's market, little small screens. This interior you're looking at right now does not exist in today's market. You'll see a photo a little bit later in this video. The work truck tradesman trim has a nicer interior as far as technology wise than this truck does or did back then. So this interior doesn't even exist today. Okay. So that's the 2016. Oh, I did 2026. The 2026 press release doesn't even break out limited trim. Doesn't even talk about it. Here's what Google has to say about it. Google says it features a high output 3-liter Hurricane inline-6 engine producing 540 horsepower as standard. Key features include premium quilted leather interior, chrome exterior styling, LED lighting, power deployable running boards, a Ram box cargo management system, a power tailgate. Inside you'll find heated, ventilated, and massaging front seats, a 14.5-inch Uconnect nav system, dual panel moonroof, a 10.25-inch passenger touchscreen. Here are your photos for those people watching. This has a what I would say more luxury look to it. I think it looks better. A little bit better designed wheels, sharper wheels for sure. A little bit better body styling lines. I have the Ram boxes are standard. I like the way the rear looks. It's not, I have less chrome, but I think it looks more elegant. If you can say a truck's elegant. I think it looks more luxurious. And then inside the cabin, I have a more luxury feel inside the cabin. Materials are much better. I have the bigger screen, which people love or hate this, but I have a much more luxurious looking cabin. I have more features. I have more USB connections. I have more technology. I even have the passenger screen in this that's usable or not usable. Pano, heated seats, cooled seats, massaging seats. So it's $20,000 difference. I would say that the 2016 that I'm looking at again, this limited 2016, is now today's Bighorn. I'd say this truck, if you go to dealership lot today and look at a 2026, it's now the Bighorn. The Laramie you bought in 2016, or excuse me, the limited is now the Bighorn. It's not the top trim level. So I've said to people and salesmen I've talked to about this as well. They all tell me the same thing. The trims have now gone down. They've gone down a notch. What used to be the top trim level is now a mid-tier trim, and new top trim levels have replaced it. So what has happened over the years? If you literally see the top trim levels have gotten fancier, they've gotten more powerful, they've gotten safer in some regards. You have more sensors, more cameras, more backup cameras. And yeah, that stuff all adds to the price. And some consumers love it, some consumers hate it, but that's what's happened. And there are consumers who want this stuff and they're paying for it. You even have the tradesman level. You now have Apple CarPlay, Android Auto built in these things, mandatory backup cameras. This photo on the screen right now is a 2019 Ram 1500 tradesman. We have bucket seats, leather cloth seats, vinyl flooring. We have a really small screen. You really can't see what's going on. Probably really small cameras. Not a lot going on in their interior. And if you look at the 2025 Ram 1500 tradesman, the interior is a lot better. We have wireless CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, USB's built in, a little bit bigger screen. I can actually see the cameras. I can see what I'm doing. Just a different interior. It just looks like it's a better interior. And then we have other factors that have driven up costs for the years. Steel aluminum tariffs started in 2018, excuse me. Think about this. I don't understand why people don't bring this up. What are vehicles made out of? Steel and aluminum. those tariffs impact vehicle prices. UAW strike resulted in higher wages. Some people on TikTok actually pointed this out. I'm like, yeah, that UAW impacts stuff. This guy says it killed the automotive industry. It didn't kill it, but it did play a role. And companies that aren't UAW companies like Toyota and Honda, I don't know say word, Toyota and Honda, they raise their wages too. So just because they're not a UAW company doesn't mean they were not have wages go up. They had wages go up as well. Tariffs on auto parts and automotive production, not in US, those are all raising prices right now as well. We've also seen other changes. We're not seeing the big incentives on trucks we used to. I used to go buy trucks all the time. You knew you got cash in the hood. You knew you walked to the dealership and they had $10,000 off. Any dealership. I bought my new Ram RHO from Mark Dodge. They still give lots of cash in the hood. But most dealerships, it was guaranteed cash in the hood. It's not the case anymore. Incentives have gone away for a large part right now with what's going on in the economy. Used to be a lot of incentives. Interest rates were lower. We had 0% interest financing nationwide. You can still find it in pockets, but the deals aren't as good as they used to be. You also, overall costs of goods and services have increased year over year. Inflation, we have that is still a bugger. We have the value of the dollar's weakened. Go to McDonald's and get a fast food meal. Every time I go now, it's $15. $15. Not interested. So greed is always a simple answer, but does it really add up? I think I've kind of shown you it doesn't really add up. If it did, the work truck should be $60,000. But the work truck's only gone up $9,000. And I say only because I expected that to be a lot more. In today's market, with the way things have gone over the last decade, 9,000 I don't think is that big of a jump. It may be to you, and you may call me all sorts of names, but I was surprised that it didn't go up that much. What has gone up is the high trim levels. But those higher trim levels, the tungsten specifically in this case, has a lot more features in it. Things we couldn't even imagine 9 years ago. And those features do cost money. And guess what? People are buying it. I don't know, I'd say it more clearly. There are people in this world that have money and they don't care about the cost of those trucks and they're buying them. Is it raising the cost of the tradesman? No. The entry-level Bighorn costs have been pretty good relative for the way the economy's changed. And Ram's bringing the Express back as a more entry-level truck for the middle class to buy that isn't the tungsten trim. So they're trying to give you options. But apparently that's the wrong thing to do. And then finally, there's something about human psychology. There's just something about it. I remember working at Walmart, and this is the big deal. We would do things where we'd do $9.99 because it wouldn't be $10. So if it was $10, it was like, oh my gosh, that's $10. $9.99 is not $10. But now $100,000, that's a luxury. That's just people get so mad about it, and they talk about greed. Automakers should go bankrupt because it's a $100,000 truck. $100,000 go bankrupt because that's just total greed. Irregardless of the fact that most trucks are sold between $40,000 and $50,000. So I don't know what it is about $100,000. Just people just lose their minds about that, and I'm so bewildered by that. So maybe you can explain what's going on there. All right, let's wrap this up. What else going on this week? We had different news items. Close my eyes here. We talked about the 10-year warranty from Ram. It's actually a limited time offer. That's a weird one. Ford recalls just keep coming. They told me they're working on quality. They lead the industry now for the first half of the year in recalls. Wow. We have the American Made Index. The two leading trucks on this list would surprise you. They have the top trucks made in America. I'll do a short on this pretty soon, but the interesting list of American made trucks. And then we had a few other news stories there. I had the forum, more stuff going on over there, lots of back and forth with me, and lots of good conversations. And then we had on the YouTube channel, we had Honda Ridgeline. Joe's getting ready to do another Rebel Rally. I talked about the warranty, and we talked another warranty. Lots of warranty news this week. So that's going on the pickup truck. Plus, SUV Talk this week. Sorry for making this video so long. Lots of details to go over. Again, long morning researching all that stuff. So, hey, make sure to check out the videos up over here, website down below as well. And thanks for listening. As always, I will see you down the road.